listening to The Critical Social Worker, a revolutionary storytelling podcast. I'm your host, Professor Ace, and with the support of the University of Alaska Fairbanks Department of Social Work, we gather voices of revolutionary social workers from around the world, organizers, healers, artists, and educators, people who carry stories that connect us, challenge us, and remind us what it means to be human. Each episode is an offering, a chance to slow down, listen deeply, and feel the ground beneath your feet. Come as you are, stay as long as you need, and remember, no matter your pain, somebody, somewhere feels the same. Welcome to The Circle. This episode features Dr. Marina Badillo-Diaz, LCSW and founder of the AI Social Worker. She's helping lead the profession into an AI-shaped future with ethics, transparency, and strong personal judgment. If you find something meaningful here, the best way that you can support this work is simple. Like, comment, share the episode, and subscribe to our channels. And if you want to connect, ask questions, or be a part of the conversation, please reach out, because I'd love to hear from you. Welcome to another episode of The Critical Social Worker, a revolutionary storytelling podcast. I think this is episode maybe 76 or 77. I lose track all the time. But I feel very blessed and fortunate to be joined by Dr. Marina Badillo-Diaz this morning, or this afternoon for you. How are you?
I'm doing great. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast today.
Yeah, no, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. I think we have some very important topics. As a matter of fact, I meant that when I emailed you or when I messaged you earlier, and I said, I think this may be the most important topic that I've covered. Not to dismiss any of the other conversations or topics, but AI is just such an emerging issue, deal, something that we, like it, love it or hate it, it's here.
Yeah.
And so we need to talk about it. I wanted to give you a quick introduction. Okay, so Dr. Marina Badillo-Diaz is the founder of MABD Consulting. Is that right? Did I say that right?
It
MABD
is.
Consulting. I put that on here if anybody wants to check you out there. And then you're also the creator of the AI Social Worker, which is a blog and a resource for social workers that are navigating the digital era. I might give people that too. And I'll put these in the description for anybody watching this afterwards. And I was reading through your profile, the description, and you've been around for a while. You have experience in a number of areas. I mean, you have been helping social workers integrate AI into their practices most recently, but you have major roles with the NASW. You have experience in school social work, counseling, clinical social work. You teach classes at New York University, at Columbia University, and more. So you have a ton of experience and a ton of knowledge. And so, like I said, I feel very fortunate that you took the time out of your day to talk to us today. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you again for the opportunity. And I know you've been doing this work for a while as well. And I've been following your podcast for some time, especially in the LinkedIn space. I think it's so great that we have this community. And I know that's how we connected as well, too, is through LinkedIn, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And anybody in the audience, any students, feel free to chime in the chat or even call in if you feel brave enough. But I echo you, Marina, that LinkedIn can be a great place. And I was very wary of LinkedIn for a while. I had an account and I get an email once in a while that say when somebody was checking me out or this or that. And so I was hesitant. But since I've gotten involved, that's where I've created the most meaningful relationships by far. Like it's not even close. I don't even really... We'll kind of like upload short videos to Instagram and stuff. But other than that, it's all LinkedIn. So students, if you want to get connected, that's, to me, it can be cringeworthy sometimes, but it's the best place to connect and create community and gather around other people that are doing big things in social work, like Marina.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this. What made you get into AI? What made you interested in it?
Yeah. So I think prior to me even dabbling with AI tools, I think I was in a space ready to be open to technology. My background is in school social work, and I've held administrative roles in social work and in school social work. And I think that already had opened up my mind to data reporting, data platforms as part of my role as a school social work administrator. I was already doing a lot of that work. And when ChatGPT also came on the scene, that was November of 2022, I didn't really start dabbling into it into that spring. So I would still consider myself an early adopter, but I wasn't like right off the scene in November of 2022 trying ChatGPT. It still took me a couple of months, and actually nothing social work related brought me to ChatGPT was simply because I've had my MABD consulting business for a couple of years where I support schools, K through 12 education with school social work training, clinical supervision, and social emotional learning consulting. And I had just finished my fellowship with the US Department of Education in that spring. And I was really wanting to revamp my website, revamp my Instagram content. And I kept getting these reels like, put this into ChatGPT and you'll get all this free content, free information for your website, free information for your social media. And I was like, okay, well, let me try this, right? Like, I'm not a website expert. I certainly don't have all the time to figure out social media content either. And when I started it, and I was like, well, one, this was really easy to do. Two, I was like, well, I'm doing so many tasks as an educator, as my consulting business, clinical supervision, all the things. I was like, I started experimenting it with other aspects of my role and the work that I do. And then I was like, but wait, we're social workers. We care so deeply about ethics and compliance and doing harm. And like, what does this mean in the larger context? And so for me, even though I found the practical use of it too, just as an important part of this conversation also is really talking about the ethical guidance and responsible use, which at that time I wasn't seeing a lot in social work talking about those concerns. I was really seeing a lot in K through 12 education, like students are cheating. What is this going to mean for students? And students need to learn, which is also really important as part of this conversation. I'm sure we'll be having also. But I think for me, that's what really opened up my eyes was I was really getting involved in the education space of AI, but I didn't really see a lot of that in social work. And that's what drew me to really be in this sort of intersection now of AI, social work, and youth mental health as well.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it kind of chose you. This is what you're meant to be doing.
Maybe it did. Maybe it did. Right time, right place.
Yeah. Well, my same time, around the same time, I don't remember
Yeah, I was
exactly
gonna
when,
ask.
but when ChatGPT came in, I'd been teaching for a while, but it was my first year,
Mhm.
academic year as a full-time professor. And I
Wow.
used to use very successfully blogs for just
Mhm.
online asynchronous classes. My biggest concern is connection and being able to learn from each other and dialogue. You miss out on all that. So what I had done is instead of having them do like substantive posts on whatever learning device you or whatever learning system management system that you have, like Canvas or Blackboard or whatever, I'd have them we create a WordPress blog, and then they would create blogs with pictures, and they were very beautiful. It was amazing, and I had extremely positive results and feedback from the students. And then when
Mhm.
ChatGPT came, it went from, I'm not saying that everyone, but I'd
Yeah.
say a good percentage of them went from being very organic and meaningful to like about tapestries of wisdom and like repeating the
Yes.
same type of phrases. And AI's changed. I mean, ChatGPT's changed in
Mhm.
how it doesn't do that anymore. It does other kinds
Mhm.
of writing now. And so I had
Mhm.
to change that. But on the positive side, ChatGPT has helped me. It doesn't necessarily create for me, but it
Right.
really does do a good job of helping me organize my thoughts. When I was trying to come up with a value system for the
Mhm.
podcast, I was putting my thoughts in there. Can you help me do this? And it did a really, really good job, and it was really efficient compared to me sitting down
Mhm.
and trying to
Yeah.
pull teeth and get it done. So I see the pros and the cons. I think another thing that I worry about future wise is that we become too reliant upon it and then we don't know how to write at all, if that makes
Yeah.
sense for the future.
Yeah, I am alongside of you of those real concerns. And I think maybe some of the beauty that we have as practitioners who've been in the field for a while, right? We have a lot of practice wisdom, we have a lot of experience. So we're able to take that and then use AI strategically as a tool, as a brainstorming thought partner, or as a task, manager is able to complete some administrative tasks for us. I do also share that same worry too of the over reliance or even just what is learning going to mean across K through 12 education and even higher
Mhm.
education too, right? Because that's also impacting our field. And because our field also works with the most vulnerable, marginalized communities, I think about that also. Like, what is it going to mean that we want
Mhm.
to ensure that they're trained? I think field practicum is going to be even more important as we navigate through the world of AI because, again, we don't want our profession to overutilize AI, and I think also our students as well too. I really want learning to still be at the center and also human-centered learning as well. I don't know what your thoughts are on that or how you're navigating that in your classes too.
Well, it's kind of a learn as you go, you know, you kinda have to
Yeah.
fail, and I'm not like a micromanager or, you know, I don't
Yeah.
have an authoritative presence in classes. I feel like I work with adults, obviously, and many of them are
Yes.
non-traditional, older adults,
Yeah.
and so I kind of have felt it out a little bit as it's went, and I don't have a hard line
Mhm.
policy when it comes to artificial intelligence. You can't write a
Yeah.
paper with it, and it's obvious if you do. You can use it to help
Right.
you, I think, and that's reasonable. Uh,
Mhm.
I like the way that you say it. I think you say that you help folks ethically and responsibly. I think you say confidently, ethically, and
Yeah.
responsibly integrated. And I think that's what's important. Like I said, it's here whether we like it or not. So I could ban AI in my classes; they would still use it. You know, there's
Oh,
no real way for me to determine because I mean, here's one thing. So I can mostly recognize ChatGPT at this point if it's just written by ChatGPT, but then I can go
yep.
read like let's say a memoir or an autobiography from someone that had a professional author help them write it, and it's very
Mm.
similar the way that they write. So there's no clear evidence in it, and so
Yeah.
I like to more keep an open dialogue with the students about AI
Yeah.
and keep an open mind about it if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I really try to take that stance as well too as an educator, as a professor. I think a lot about the anti-oppressive sort of frame, right? Like I don't want to go in and be like the AI police or, you know,
Mhm.
plagiarism and like policing, I think that sort of aspect in the learning, one, I just don't have the brain power bandwidth to be like, about around AI. And I appreciate your approach to it too, that students can use it. I think a lot about that too. Like we also have students who adult learners, or maybe English is not their first language, or maybe they're neurodiverse learners as well. And I've had great conversations with students who say, I'm actually using AI tools to really help me learn. Like I'm taking the
Yeah.
articles, I'm putting it to Notebook LM. And so I'm listening to it as a podcast in the car as I'm driving to work. Or I'm using AI to help me understand the article. I read it first, but then I put it into ChatGPT to give me a summary to check my
Mhm.
understanding to make sure I'm reading it correctly, or even having it generate quizzes so then I can test my learning of the articles and the content. I think what's so important is that we have these conversations with students so that they know, because I think integrity is such a foundational core value of our profession, that we want our students to have integrity because they're going to have this technology, right? As
Mhm.
they're in the field. Employers are going to be purchasing AI tools. Some of them already have. And I also know the trend is that employers are going to want our students to be knowledgeable and understand how to use these tools. So, how can we sort of integrate it? We're real genuine learning is happening, we're building those critical thinking skills alongside using
Mhm.
AI, giving them sort of the boundaries and the guidance of what can AI be used for, like, just like you said. You could use it responsibly to give you outlines, help you with word choice, helping you understand the assignment, but not have it write it for you completely, which I think is a great
Mhm.
guidance to give students because we really want them to build those communication and writing skills. But then also at the same time, how can we have them use it side by side in assignments so they could really build that learning too. So I'm with you there.
Yeah, yeah, and it makes me think. So when I switched from the blogs, I found this thing called
Yeah.
voice threads, and it's not perfect, but it allows us to kind of have a conversation, not in real time, but over a week's time, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
sometimes when I listen to them, it sounds like they've used ChatGPT and they're kind of reading from it. And I'll tell you why it
Mhm.
doesn't bother me so much as it might bother other people. Because let's say I have this
Mhm.
student who maybe it's intro to social work or even like human behavior or something like that, human behavior in the
Yep.
social environment. And they do this and I've given this something that they don't quite understand. Maybe they grasp it a little bit, but they don't quite get it. And that's reasonable, all right? That's why they're there. And
Yep.
then they mess around with ChatGPT, they put their thoughts in there, and it helps them generate something, and then they read it. Well, I look at it like, well, they probably learned a lot because they typed it out, they read it,
Mhm.
and then they said it out loud. And so maybe the next time they don't need it
Yeah.
and they can share their thoughts about it without it, if that makes sense. So I view it as
Yeah.
they're still climbing the hill even if it's in a different way.
Yes, and I've heard similar things too from students, like, even at their field practicum, like, they're working for the first time with high school students, and I had a student say, like, "I didn't even know where to even start, like, what to how do I approach this, or what should we talk about in our session, and I wanna utilize CBT, but I just don't know how to do that with this type of student," and we know supervisors, even the best well-intentioned, right, aren't always available all the
Mhm.
time for students, 'cause that's just naturally how the work goes. So even in those parameters of students using AI as a resource, right? To be able to experiment, try, get ideas, I think that's a great way because again, it's happening alongside of working in practice, like with clients, right? So they're getting some of that feedback, getting some ideas, using it as a thought partner, even building their learning because they're getting that information and then actually, trying it. I think what we have to do also as like as professors, even as curriculum developers, is how can we make that intentionally their learning in our courses, and I think that's gonna take some time because, like you said earlier, Christian, like, us professors, we're learning this at the same time too, right? We're building our
Yeah.
AI capacity and understanding, and at the same time, having to prepare the field as well, and so it's just sort of this shared learning experience, where we're kinda learning as we go because we're just in that sort of messy place right now, right? We're just still all learning at the same time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I like that, you said that, we have to be
Mhm.
intentional, we have to be deliberate about it because if we're not intentional about it, it's still gonna be happening and we won't know what to do with it, if that makes sense. So be intentional, and
Yeah.
again, it's here. So it is here for sure. It reminds me a little bit of, remember when Wikipedia first came out, and I was a student
Oh,
back then,
yes.
and they'd say, "You're not allowed to use Wikipedia at all." And obviously, you don't go source Wikipedia, but Wikipedia
Yeah.
was very helpful in some ways for me. I didn't know something, so I looked it up, and it has all the sources at the bottom, so I could follow the sources and things
Yeah.
like that. So I felt like there was a
Yeah.
fear of it, but in a way, it was actually really, really helpful. And when I was a kid, you did a report, you had to go and find like a encyclopedia, and it had a little
Yeah.
paragraph in there, and that's where you got your information. And now you have all the information in the whole world at our disposal at all times, pretty much. What
You're
about
right.
everyone I think that's gone through, the arc of ChatGPT from the beginning
Yes.
has the situation where I was working on my dissertation, and not to write it or anything, but I was trying to find some more sources. And so I
Yep.
was looking for something from bell hooks. And
Yep.
I don't remember exactly what I did, but I was asking it for him, can you find me something that fits here? And then
Yep.
I can go find, and it gave me, and I was like, wow, this is great. And then I tried
Yep.
to find it, and it didn't exist. And I was like, oh, how many people put
Yes.
this in a paper or something? And then
Well,
it's not there. And I also imagine, like, people that review journal entries and stuff like that, it's a much more challenging situation today because, you have to really
mhm.
make sure. It might sound really good, but it might even be in
Yeah.
alignment with bell hooks, but it's not real.
It's not. No, and I think that's one of the other intentional points that we also talk about with students too, right, is building this AI literacy piece is letting them know, like, this can hallucinate and make up information, right? It's designed to always give a response, and it's not always gonna be accurate. And I've had the same experience too where I and not even intentionally, like, trying to police, like, and catch students, using AI in the sense in a negative way. I literally just was like, "Oh, this article's really interesting." It was about trauma and trauma-informed practice, and I looked it up, and I was like, "I actually can't find this article. It doesn't
Mhm.
exist," right? And so for me, how I like to take those as teachable moments and learning opportunities because we're not in that space at that time where we had explicit policy around AI as well too for the classroom, right? This has kind of been the gray area that we've been really navigating. And so I think it's part AI literacy as well to let students know when you try to use ChatGPT to write your assignments or come up with articles and references, it's not going to be accurate. So you always have to double check your sources. But then it also kind of goes to that place of like plagiarism as well too, right? Of can we be in a space that students can be more transparent about their AI use and saying how they're using it in their assignment before they're actually turning in the assignment? So I'm actually going to be experimenting that in the next semester. I'm actually building out a course with the University of Tennessee and I'm really excited for this opportunity to not only teach a course on AI, but really think about this sort of intentionally of so I think there's two things. One, there's a couple of folks, the authors the first author's last name is Perkins, so Michael Perkins and a couple of his colleagues, they created something known as the AI assessment scale. So they were really intentional with providing a framework for educators, K through 12 and higher ed, of looking at, okay, you can have assignments that have no AI. So AI is not allowed, to assignments having full AI, which I believe is like a level 4, level 5 of fully using AI, or having, say, a level 2, level 3 that AI is your thought partner in this way for the assignment.
Mhm.
And so I'm intentional this next semester for this course to really use the AI assessment scale as part of my course syllabus of how the assignment is designed, that where you can use AI and how, and encouraging to use AI if a student chooses to assignments that no AI could be used, and then also assignments that full AI could be used. Because again, I think this is also teaching for the real world skills as well, just like us who are grappling with this now. There's gonna be some tasks that I use AI for completely, some where it's a
Mhm.
thought partner brainstormer, and there's some activities I would never use AI for all entirely. So I'm gonna be experimenting that next semester, and also with the transparency statement as well of just being really open and transparent about how AI is being used in the assignment, because I really want to see how that sort of lands with students as well next term. So those are some of the thoughts that I have right now that I'm building out.
Yeah, well, I look forward to hearing about that afterwards. Is that available publicly?
Yes. Okay. So the AI assessment scale, absolutely. I will send you the website. We could post it with this podcast recording. And so it's the AI assessment scale and the transparency statement. I'm also happy to share that with you too, right? I'm all about sharing resources. Like
Yeah.
we are in this together, trying to figure this out, both students and professors, and even school administrators too, right? We're
Mhm.
all in this space. So I really want to share resources so that we can build best practices.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And yeah, do that and I'll make sure that's in the
Yeah.
description. And I
Yes.
know there's some students out here in the audience, so I know you have some experience with this. So please share your thoughts or if you have any questions. You
Yes.
mentioned field work and whatnot, but I
Mm.
have not taken over, but I'm teaching the practicum courses this semester. Uh,
Awesome.
and
Yep.
because we lost our field director, so essentially I've been doing it. But I also
Okay.
teach. I
Yeah.
want to circle back to that in just a minute. But I also teach practice, and so we're learning, solution focused interviewing skills, motivational
Mhm.
interviewing, and
Mhm.
I've never thought about it before. But I wonder about having, especially it's a Zoom course, but I
Yes.
wonder, you're always looking for opportunities to practice. I'd never thought about it before, but I wonder when I put them in the breakout rooms to practice, I wonder if that would be a really cool experiment to have them integrate, the whatever you call it, the audio version of Chat GPT and
Yes.
see if you can, utilize it. Have you heard of anything like that or any experience with that?
Yes. Yes, actually, even an article was published on this too, and I'm happy to also share that as well, that
Mhm.
they wrote an article about using Perplexity as the chatbot with students, that the professor was using the AI chatbot to simulate a conversation with the client and had the opportunity to, one, critique it, talk about ways that it could have responded differently, or even best practices, how they thought they actually agree with the chatbot and the direction that it took. It wasn't specific to AI motivational interviewing in itself, but I think that's a really creative way of, one, for students to build their critical thinking while also building intervention skills at the same time, and having a tool at their disposal to practice. So, and also even practice prompting and having that whole conversation with them too. At Hunter College, where I also do some work with the field department, we have rolled out this year as an option for first year students a specifically designed AI tool, which is called Cogni Trainer, that is trained with AI avatars on the back end to support with suicide assessments, practice, biopsychosocial practice as well. They partner with this company. We're able to build out avatars, they even have avatars that they've already created. And so we're piloting that with students. So I don't have all the feedback and data yet because we're going to be running focus groups in December. We've had some positive feedback. We've also had some concerns, and rightfully so. As a social work profession, we care about ethics, environmental impacts, what this is going to mean for marginalized communities. Students really care deeply about their data and privacy and what's sort of happening with
Mhm.
that and who's testing on it. So I think from a social work lens, it sparked really important dialogue. But I think I think will be an interesting activity. I haven't done one exactly like that because I don't teach practice
Mhm.
classes, but I think I would try that if I was doing something like and teaching a practice class, and that's a really interesting way, to support students just even practicing in a breakout room. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a shot. I have actually a really close-knit community of students, only about 9 students in
Yes.
that course, and so I think that they would
Yeah.
be willing to give it a try and just do a little
Yes.
experimentation, practice it. So
Yep.
we'll see
Love
how that
that.
goes. And you mentioned field work. I was just wondering in general if you could talk a little bit more about, 'cause like I said, I'm
Yeah.
teaching the practicum course and it's new to me. I'm no expert in it by any means. I'm more of a,
Mm,
let's say, expert in creating community for the students and making sure that they feel supported and whatnot.
uh,
How do you see AI integrated into that?
yeah. So, I mean, so one part is that tool, right, that we've been piloting this term, because we know, especially, first year students, it's daunting. It's overwhelming. I know I was there as a first year student, right? Meeting a client for the first time, having all the anxiety and jitters. And oh my God, do I remember what I talked about in class? And can I ask those questions and all the things? So we hope that it could be a supplement, this AI tool, not to replace student learning with clients, but also just having a safe space to make mistakes, right? I know when I did my first suicide assessment, anxiety, overwhelming, you want to make sure that you're doing it correctly, I'm not missing anything. What an opportunity to safely do that with a chatbot that's been trained. It's built by a mental health professional. The whole AI case scenario is on the back end as well. To be able to have that practice before doing it, with the real human, which will happen one day too for our students. So that's one way that I see practicum being impacted by AI and having tools to support with learning. But I also think about how students are using AI at their field placements because some agencies, as I've been speaking with students, have actually purchased AI tools. So they're using
Mhm.
case management tools or they purchase, Copilot as part of their email, right, with their Microsoft 360. And so they have access to use those tools at their agency. To then some students using it as a guiding tool, like I mentioned earlier, right? Like I've never worked with high school students before. How can it help me, have a first session with the client and being supportive in that way? But then also, can we carve out space in supervision to talk about this, right? And so this has been an interesting space because in talking and speaking with supervisors, they're also learning, just like we're learning too, right? How can we use AI in practice? And so some supervisors are feeling more equipped to have these conversations, others not so much. But we've also been in a space too where students are also using AI or sorry, a student has also used AI for process recordings, but also supervisors using AI to give feedback on process recordings and students having feelings around that. And rightfully so. I think it's such an important conversation. And not to say the field departments that I've been a part of, I don't think anyone has moved in this direction yet that I've seen, but really creating a space where everyone could sort of meet together and sort of say, what are the parameters and guidance around AI use? Can you use AI as a supervisor to upload a process recording and get feedback that way?
Mhm.
'Cause that student in particular was really upset that their field instructor had used that. It wasn't talked about in supervision. So I think about the opportunities that we could really build AI literacy together and talking about how it can be used responsibly in AI supervision spaces. How can it be used to support learning? But again, where is the space that we're not going to use AI and being in agreements about that? When that came up with the student and the field instructor, well, the university didn't have a policy that it couldn't be used, right? That we can't use AI to upload process recordings in. And we haven't provided training and guidance for that as field instructors either. So I don't have all the answers. We haven't moved in that direction yet of actually building policy. But I have gone in some spaces in some universities where I think even a couple weeks ago, I spoke with student body, administration. They even invited field instructors to be part of that AI training so that everyone could kind of be in the space together. So we're still learning at the same time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Is the best? You think the best way to stay up to date on that is through your blog, the AI social worker, on some of
Yeah.
the developments?
So the blog is definitely a place. I was blogging really heavily last year. It's a lot to keep up with. So
Mhm.
this year I've made a goal of once a month, but I do really try to save resources and share that. Certainly, I know you're very active on LinkedIn. Same thing with myself. I try to be as active in sharing content, sharing free resources and information. I also have, prompt a library on my website where I provide free prompts across micro, meso, macro practice to help students and those in the field think about how they can integrate AI for specific social work tasks. And I'm also doing trainings too, but I'm always sharing things online. But as you know, it's definitely a task in itself to be really active on LinkedIn also,
Yeah.
right? It's something we have to be really intentional about. And I try to be.
It's a lot of work to keep anything going, a podcast, a blog, you got other things
Yes.
going on. It's really hard to be consistent and make it
Yes.
all
Yes.
matter. With the podcast, I've got like 10 episodes just backed up, because it's just hard to keep up with
It
it all.
is. Yeah.
Alice in the chat, she says she's one of my non-traditional students. She says, "So I'm an I am an old enough student and not enamored of screen time that I actually avoid the computer as much as possible." And I think that's good. I
Yeah.
hadn't even heard of ChatGPT until last semester, and I think it's still fairly new, Alice. So I mean, you're not that far
Yeah.
behind. Do you notice differences between, because obviously, like the younger generation that's going through school, especially going through the pandemic, and they might have been separated from physical school for a while, and then
Yeah.
generationally, the older generation, have you seen differences in how they utilize
Mhm.
it or how they're accepting of it?
Yeah, so I'm seeing a mixture of both, like, in my own experience with students, right? Some older students who are using this technology and have found it really helpful and useful, to also younger students who are like, "I am not using this at all because I think it's extremely unethical and wrong to do so." So I don't wanna think it's just a generational or age, but even research is also showing that older folks are not using it as often as younger folks, uh, just in terms of just sort of those generational differences. But in the classroom, I will say I have groups of students, regardless of age, are really avid users, early adopters, have found it really helpful. To students who are open to it, to I've been dabbling with it, to being like, "Oh my god, I feel like I've lost the train, like I have to catch up and I'm anxious and I'm missing the boat," to, really taking a social work stance, being like, "I really think this is unethical of the impact this is having on the environment or for marginalized communities." And I generally try to respect students are where they're at in all those sort of spaces, and at the same time, really try to help prepare students for the world of work or what's to come as well too, or at least just be knowledgeable about what this technology is and how it works and how it's because it's impacting gonna be impacting our clients. What we know is that everyday lay people are using AI for therapy, they're using AI for personal support and guidance,
Mhm.
and yet ChatGPT is not HIPAA compliant. What is AI doing with your data? You're telling it all the most vulnerable information about yourself, and I get it because people are turning to it because it's so accessible, right? It's free, it's available, it's you're able to get a response in a matter of seconds, right? If you're struggling with anxiety or need help with something, I think it's so easy and accessible to use. And also, probably part of the problem is we know we just don't have enough therapists or even accessing mental health. Like, this is also speaking to a much larger problem that we have. And at the same time, like, our clients are using it. And so this is what I love about our profession. We care about, what does this mean for data privacy? What does this mean for protecting, client information when they're putting the most vulnerable, information into these chatbots. So I think there's, even though if students are choosing not to use it, I still think there's really deep value in understanding this technology as well too. And to give themselves grace, right? Your student Ala, that had shared, like, I just heard about it, like, that's okay, right? We're all learning, and we're gonna be growing through the AI revolution together, right? And being in different spaces on it also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Thank you for that. David has a couple comments here in the
Yeah,
chat. He's in my generation, I think.
yeah.
Says I tried using ChatGPT to try and find resources for a project, but
Mhm.
like you mentioned, not all of the information that is given is correct. I haven't used it
Yeah.
since, and like Professor A stated, I used to have to look for an encyclopedia to get information, so having to do some extra searching myself online is fine with me. And
Mhm.
I would add to this, David, is that I think, but ChatGPT, as we mentioned earlier, it can be wrong, and you just stated it can be wrong. But
Mhm.
I think you go back to having the stack of encyclopedias on your shelves or whatever. That doesn't necessarily mean that that information was accurate too. Somebody controlled that, and it can be biased as well, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. And I think we have
Mhm.
this tendency, especially the further you go back, that if it's in print, then
Yeah.
it must be true or it must be whatever. And so I think that
Yeah.
we just have to be cautious in all those areas. And I think there's some, like David, to go and do the research and do the footwork. It's nice not to have to do that sometimes, but it also can be valuable to do the labor, right? Even if I like it just like if you were have a yard, right? And you can have somebody come and do it for you, and that's helpful and it gives you time, but it can might be more meaningful and you might be more connected to it if you were the one that did it. So I see both sides of that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, me too, and I think you bring up really valid points, right? That we always have to check for bias, and it's not like print is the holy grail of not being unbiased as well to an all true,
Mhm.
all true, factual knowledge. I will say in my practice, like of using AI tools, I have found Perplexity to be one of the better AI tools out there for research. And what I appreciate about Perplexity is that automatically built into the AI tool, when you prompt it asking a simple question like, I would like to know more information about what hospital social workers do. I'm just asking a basic question. In
Mhm.
its response, it's going to give you links to the websites of where that information came from. So at the top, it's going to list all the websites. And then even in its response, it's going to give you like a little gray box that you can literally click the website, go right to it of where that information came from. And you can prompt it to say, I'm looking for academic articles. Now, my caveat is it's not so great as pulling those academic articles. I will still say our library databases that we get with our universities do a much better job in finding articles and most up to date through, Psych Info, Social Index, all, Eric, whatever, all the PubMed. But I do find that Perplexity in a quick pinch, or I'm just looking for some basic knowledge and information, that Perplexity has been really helpful for me to find information and able to check where it came from because it gives you the links right away. You can do that in ChatGPT, but you have to make sure that you turn on the web search function in the chat bot. And you do that by clicking there's a little plus sign in the little chat bot. You click it, and then you could see the web search tool, and you just click that, and then you prompt, and then ChatGPT will then give you the websites of where the information is coming from. Just want to share that little tip.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I've heard the name Perplexity, but I haven't looked at it at all. So
Mm.
I would definitely check that out, and I'll put that
Yeah.
in the another
Mhm.
one of the things. This is going to be a heavy resource rich description to this podcast.
No, we have to keep a list, right, of all the things. If we forget something, please let me know, Christian, because I wanna make sure I give you all the things too.
Yeah, no worries. And we can move forward in just a minute, but something I want to circle back to that I was thinking of earlier when we were talking about, university policy. You were talking about university policy and things like that.
Yes.
So I was
Mhm.
actually on the faculty senate, and they put me on this AI committee right when ChatGPT was
Wow.
taking force.
Yes.
And the issue I see with it is like, well, so essentially we didn't do much. We just provided a template where you could uh,
Mhm.
choose kind of one of several options to put into your syllabi, that
Yep.
says, hey, you can't, like you said, you can't use it. You can kind of use it, or
Yep.
you're
Yep.
available to use it kind of thing. And the issue I saw with it is the way that it was going about is policy and stuff takes time at the university, going through committees and all that. And
Yes.
so I felt like when we were talking about it and moving forward, that
Mm.
the rest of like Chat GPT was evolving faster than we were, if that makes sense. And
Yes.
we were able to talk about it. So by the time you create the
Yeah.
policy, well, it's already changed. It's already shifted
Right.
again. So how do we keep
Right.
up with it?
You know, I think the hard answer is, like, we have to do the work to keep up with it. We have to have the resources to keep up with it. And some universities are more equipped and have the resources of individuals or just even top down that they're a lot more motivated to stay up with AI policy and guidance, offer trainings. I don't know if your university has offer trainings in tandem with the policy that was given, right? Because I think it's both and, right? That we need the policy and guidance and we need the training as professors to also be able to use this in practice. What I've sort of seen in my own experience is similar to what you said, like different policies, right, that you could choose as a professor. And some universities doing a better job than others in offering AI trainings and not just specific AI trainings for social work, but just more globally as professors abroad in all disciplines. And at the same time, I think social work departments also need their own training because, again, our field has unique ethics and guidance, and we're a human service profession. And so we also want to take care around that about helping us also understand for practice reasons AI literacy too. But I just don't think universities are just at that resource space capacity, or some may not have the interest right now, or maybe some do have the interest and are just not, they don't have the resource to do it. And some are more further along than others. But I think, like I said, I think we're just in this kind of wild west place right now where, like you said, the technology phew, is already there, already on ChatGPT 5, right? Iteration 5. And yet
Mhm,
some spaces haven't even got AI training on it either. And yet students are using it and professors too, right? We're both using it. So
mhm.
I think it's sort of this ethical conversation and responsible use. It has to go hand in hand in policy. It's just taking so long to do so. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, another incredible way that it's been useful for me is, like, so say I have a module and I'm always trying to I didn't one thing I
Yeah.
really don't like to do is leave things the same from year to year because things are
Mhm.
changing, the students are changing, I'm
Yeah.
changing, so I like to change
Yep.
it, and so sometimes I got a bunch of resources in there and I can ask, say, "Hey, what's missing here? What can I add to this? What can I contribute?" And it'll give me sometimes not the best
Yep.
suggestion, but sometimes it gives me really, really good suggestions,
Mhm.
or even say like, "Hey, I'm" 'cause I like to incorporate popular culture, like music and movies
Yes.
sometimes, and sometimes I just can't think of the right movie or the right song for it, and then
Mhm.
it helps. Not always, but it's often very, very helpful in helping me to curate those kind of things, or even helping me to
Yes.
just remember something.
Yes, I'm with you too. I mean, really, like, I see it as such a great thought partner, rewriting learning objectives. Even in my slide deck, I will not say, okay, AI is generating the whole slide deck for me. There might be aspects of definition. I will put on my slide deck a transparency statement. AI was used to generate this slide, read over by me for accuracy and edited as needed. So it's been really helpful to have this as a tool to really support me, even just coming up with discussion questions or even activities, right? And I really, again, I use it as a starting point or just like you said, as a way to improve something so that it's really my thought partner and really helping create the best course experience for my students. It's been really
Yeah,
helpful.
absolutely. And my best piece of advice for no matter how you're using it, especially as a student, is to make sure that you're reading it and you're critically looking at it. I had a
Yeah.
student that reported to me at her practicum that the somebody at the practicum had created some kind of document to pass out. I don't know exactly. I can't remember what it was, but she read it and
Yeah.
it was like, "This is not. You can't deliver this," and it was because they hadn't proofread it. You know what I mean? And same thing, like when I see stuff that's questionable in work that's submitted, it could be resolved if you would be a little bit more critical and not use it because you have 5 minutes left to get it in. That's not going
Right.
to work for you. It's going to be obvious most of the time for somebody that knows how to look at it. So just
Exactly.
proofread it. Don't look
Yeah.
at it as a shortcut that, doesn't take
Mhm.
any critical thought or critical reflection on your own part.
Yeah. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Christian. I would say AI could help you save time, but not all the time, right? You can't just do it in 2 seconds and it's finished. You have to do due diligence of the intentional reflection, reading over it, critically analyzing it, checking against bias, accuracy, but also you know your clients best, you know your students best, you know the community that you're servicing, you know with your practice, wisdom, and experience, and that all has to come into play whenever you're reading anything AI generated is so
Absolutely. There's a
important.
couple of comments in here.
Yeah.
David said that his wife, who is the principal at the school there, she's listening
Yes.
as well, and she says that they're trying different things on how to use AI for educators as well as how it can help students. Says they're very
Mhm.
selective, but they're vetting programs like AI tutors or AI to help generate material for lessons, things like that. So that's cool. And Belle says
Mhm.
that she loves to use Google Notebook IM. I'm not familiar with it. I'm not sure if that's how
Yeah.
you say it. Google Notebook IM. AI sometimes feels like cheating, but in Google Notebook IM, you can input
Mm.
your textbook. Oh,
LM. Yeah, I was
LM.
gonna say LM. Yep. Yeah.
You can input your textbook, and it will generate a lifelike podcast for you to listen to.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. And so, kinda going back to K through 12 education, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of my career has been in school social work, and I do lots of trainings across different school districts for school counseling, school social workers, just and teachers as well too. And Magic School AI has been such a great AI tool for teachers from K through 12 perspective. But there are some really great benefits even for school social workers to use Magic School AI. It's free, but it can help you generate individual education plan templates, social stories to work with students that are really young or on the spectrum, or even social emotional learning lesson plans. So it's been really interesting how I would say education K through 12 is a little bit further, I would say a lot further ahead than the social work field. And again, because I think they learned very early on this concern around plagiarism, but also the opportunities for learning for students with special needs, diverse learning needs, multi-language learners. AI tutors can differentiate learning for students based on their levels, assessments, and can really tailor it to their learning needs. And I think this is a really exciting space to sort of be in a K through 12 education lens. But then also the concerns, right, of like learning, right? Our students, we're preparing them for a world of work that we don't know what that's even going to look like in 10 to 15 years. Because I think AI is going to really change a lot of things. And I'm also concerned about the young people using AI companions, these character AI, which now they just came out with a new statement a couple weeks ago. I want to say like last week that they're no longer allowing young people under the age of 18 to be able to use the platform because unfortunately there's been cases of youth dying by suicide because these chatbots, because again, they're using them as companions, using them as therapists, and they're not regulated, they're not trained by mental health professionals. And also our young people are using this technology as like a for hours on end and like interacting and having these relationships. And I just wonder, like, what is that going to do for their social emotional development as they grow older? But yet they're never going to know a world without artificial intelligence and this technology being available. So it's things that I've been wondering about in that K through 12 space. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And although it's not about K through 12 age, it reminds me of that movie that came out a while
Yeah.
back, Her, where
Yes.
he creates a relationship with, and it was before
Mhm.
all this happened. So that was very kind of forward
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah.
but he falls in love with her. And then he realizes that she also talks to everyone else in the world. And he gets a little bit disappointed about that he doesn't have
Yeah.
her
Yeah.
to himself. I should
Mhm.
put that in that's a good film to put in my class. I never thought about that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great one too. Yes, I agree. I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
Jessie says that she likes to using AI to check my citations, which I think is a great,
Mhm.
there's been tools forever, like whatever it is,
Yeah.
Easy Bib or whatever. And AI
Mhm.
does not perfect, but it does a really good job. And it can say, oh yeah, you gotta fix this. And because that's one of the things like, APA citations. My wife can do it, sit there and do it and help me out, do it
Yeah.
easily. But my mind doesn't work that way. My mind works in other ways. So that's something that's challenging for me. So to get help with that has always been,
Mm.
it's been helpful for me. She
Yes.
says, especially when I was writing in 3 different styles one semester, I never got points taken for the citations, so I think that it does a pretty good job helping students keep it straight for the most part. I also like looking
Mhm.
for sources on it. Sometimes I can remember something, but I do not know where I got it, so it can help me find it easier. I also think students have a very real fear of being accused of AI. I've heard of
Mhm.
students being kicked out of college, though I don't actually know anyone personally. It might be an urban legend. I'm sure it's happened before. I don't know any personal stories, but I'm sure there's, especially when it was coming out, that there's plenty of people that were totally anti
Yeah.
artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Have you heard of any stories of students being in trouble?
Yeah, no, I mean, from the news, I know there was a case that came out in Massachusetts that a family had sued the school district because their student was suspended for using artificial intelligence, and part of that was because there was no policy in place, and I wanna say this was, like, over a year ago as well too, that this lawsuit has happened, but in my own experience in the classroom, I've not seen a student being expelled or out of the program because of using AI. However, having conversations with the professor, having conversations with the course coordinator or the dean, and I've been part of those conversations as well too, as a learning opportunity to say, okay, and I also teach doctoral classes also, so I know this has definitely come up in that space
Mhm.
that we really want to ensure that students are using it responsibly and ethically. Because again, your writing is part of your academic integrity. And I'm all for using AI tools to really support with learning and writing. And actually, Walden University, I'll also share this with you too. They came up with really great guidance for students on how to use AI to help with their writing responsibly, where it's not sort of leading towards plagiarism of copying and pasting everything AI writes and you
Mhm.
turn it in for your assignment, but really breaking down how to intentionally use AI to support with writing. And I found that really helpful in my practice, especially in having conversations with students on ways to use it responsibly too. So I'm happy to share that also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you. It makes me think of, I'm finishing up my PhD in Indigenous Studies, and my advisor, his name is Asikaluk. And when I
Mhm.
talk to AI about him, he says it has no place at all in
Yes.
in indigenous studies because well, for a variety of reasons. But I think his main gist of it is that that's not the indigenous way of thinking and looking at the world. But then
Yeah.
I interviewed another scholar from Canada. His name's Dr.
Yes.
Michael Yellowbird, and
Yes.
he said the opposite pretty much. He said that we can
Mhm.
use it for all kinds of things like language revitalization, regeneration, things like that.
Yes.
So I think it's also like realizing that there are different perspectives and there is no perfect perspectives and to honor each other, you know what I mean? I think they're both right.
Yeah.
I think Asiklik is
Yes.
right, and I think Dr. Michael Yellowbird is right as well, if that makes sense.
Yes. I agree, and I absolutely wanna acknowledge, right, that AI is the knowledge base is definitely dominated by the global north, right? Western ideology and information. And that's not inclusive of all the types of indigenous knowledge, marginalized communities, culture, right? That it's not embedded into these tools. And so that is a huge remiss of knowledge and it's going to keep perpetuating the global north dominance of what their idea of what knowledge is. So AI does have an epistemology problem. And to your point too of the opportunities, and there's a project going on right now called Abundance Intelligence. I don't know if Dr. Yellowbird spoke about abundance intelligence, but it's a cross-continent indigenous knowledge project that includes Canada, the Pacific, and also the United States of incorporating and embedding indigenous knowledge into it. So I would be happy to also share that as well too, on abundance intelligence and the work that they're doing. I was able to one of their researchers I was at in McGill in Canada earlier this spring gave a talk about their project and how they're preserving indigenous knowledge and also teaching ways of knowing of knowledge using AI intelligence too. So it was really
Yeah.
cool to see. And again, another innovative way to preserve this really, really valuable and important knowledge as well too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I
Mm.
think too, sometimes you gotta push back on the AI.
Yes.
Sometimes it'll say something that I think is biased, and when I push it, it says, "Yeah, you're right, this is just my I've kind of been
Mhm.
programmed this way, and it will go deeper for me and look at it in a
Yep.
different way." Um,
Yep.
and just a side note, because I'm just like I'm a very curious person, so I'm always reading about things that I want to know, history and all kinds of things. And it's really great when you're
Mm.
reading something and you can just say, real quick, I can pull out my phone and I can say, "Hey, can you tell me more about this guy, or can you tell me more about this situation?" It's so helpful
Yep.
to
Yes.
contextualize things for me. I'm reading a book on the American Indian Wars in the West. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on. It can be hard to understand because there's so many different tribes and names that's unfamiliar. And
Mhm.
so I'll just ask it about the time, and it'll or not the time, but the specific incidents or a battle
Yep.
or this or that or a person, and it will help contextualize it for me. Or I could say, "Hey, so and so said this in the book, but it sounds fishy to me because couldn't have so and so just have put that in the newspaper?" And so it'll say, "Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not a verified fact. That is, what was reported, but there's no guarantee that that's the truth, if that makes
Yeah.
sense." So it helps me all the time to, broaden my horizons in that regard.
Yeah. I could also say absolutely the same too. It's really been a great tool to have at our disposal to really just even one of my favorite things. I love using it for recipes. I have a lot of
Yeah.
dietary needs in my family. My mom's like gluten free, dairy free, and so it's just great to kind of say, "Hey, I have these ingredients. Can you make me like a gluten free dessert that I could have this, with my family?" So it's been really nice in using it in that way too, not just for work purposes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a funny story. We were in between houses before we moved into this house,
yeah,
and we were in a long-term Airbnb, and so we were kind of at the disposal, and it was in a rural area, so we were at their disposal what they had, and the
yep,
family wanted chocolate chip cookies, and my wife said she was too tired, and so we didn't have that many ingredients, so I went on there and I put in what I had,
yep.
and it gave me a
Hmm.
recipe, and everybody said it was the best chocolate chip cookies that they had ever had,
Look
so
at that. Yes.
it worked.
That's really cool. The brilliance of ChatGPT, but also just being really helpful in that moment, right? In really creative ways in our everyday life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to talk about clinical social work in just a minute, but you mentioned something
Yeah.
earlier that I've heard it a bunch of times. I've seen
Mhm.
a lot of memes that the
Mhm.
impact on the environment, that I'll see a meme or something that says ChatGPT, for every ChatGPT prompt uses I don't know, I don't know the exact amounts, but it says
No,
something like it
you're right.
uses 4 quarts of water in Santa Ana and it's using all the water. Can you tell us more
Yeah.
about the environmental implications?
Yes, absolutely. So as you said, there's a lot of, information, misinformation, and I could confidently say that yes, using AI and not just AI, but all data technology systems. So if you're binge watching Netflix, if you're using Google, if you are doing online banking, if you're streaming on Spotify, right? All these everyday things that we use and all these data technology platforms to what they have is they have these data warehouses where they use water to cool the data so it does in this technology so it doesn't overheat. They also will use air conditioning as well, so it's using up electricity. And the real concern is, right, that this technology is growing, so only more data warehouses are gonna be built. We also wanna think about where these data houses are being built, and they're being built across the globe. However, we wanna think about those communities that they're intentionally going into, right, under resources, underfunded, or even have water shortages themselves, right? And yet now they're taking away more of those resources. So that's why there is this huge environmental justice piece around AI use, and understandably so that all of us need to be responsible in this conversation. One, I think pushing for more accurate research, accountability, and transparency with these companies, right? Of how they're using AI, how much water usage is being consumed, because we know that capitalism is also, and this technology is being deployed way faster than these accountability measures are being caught up. We also need push for legislation and accountability through the governance and our governing bodies to ensure that these corporations are being held accountable. And also just how all of us as everyday consumers, right, we're going to be choosing to do online banking. We're going to be choosing to be watching Netflix and Spotify, right? If we want to be conscious, intentional users, maybe that may say, okay, I'm not going to use AI. I'm going to limit my AI use because I don't want to add to the detriment part of this of my contribution to the environment, and or finding ways to prompt more strategically and intentionally, so we're not wasting energy that way. Finding ways in your everyday life that you can offset your carbon footprint or water usage. So I think this is a global, responsible effort from micro, meso to macro practice too. And at the same time, AI is also being used to solve some of these environmental issues. So there's even AI technology that could work with buildings and corporations to really look at the data and analyze and find ways that they can save resources of not wasting energy. And so they're finding ways to be more energy conscious and part of this too. So it's the both and of this technology at the same time is being harmful to the environment and also finding ways to be innovative and solving part of the problem too. But it is going to be a real issue that we want to be really mindful about and advocate and be part of the solution with that too in our use.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Very well said. Well, thinking about
Yeah.
clinical social work, one of the things, and again, I'm no expert, I've just kind of been on the fringe and the periphery, but when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to this, but see a lot of comments about both positive and negative about, like, say, using it for notes. Can you tell us anything
Yes.
about that? What's your thoughts on that?
So, yes, there's been an explosion of AI scribes, and it's not just clinical social work, like even hospitals. So, like my dad a couple weeks ago, he had a pre-op meeting with a surgeon, and one of the first things that she said in the meeting was, "Just letting you know, an AI scribe is being used. It's listening to our conversation. Once we're done with today's visit, it's gonna create a note that I'll be able to submit on your record." So, it's being used not just in clinical settings, but even in healthcare, with doctor's visits, and so on and so forth. But what's happening is this AI technology is being used. And what's happening is that in the session, it is listening in on the conversation. Some platforms, it's saved locally to the person's computer. Sometimes it's saved on a server. Sometimes it's not even saved at all. So that's why doing your due diligence of researching the platform that you're choosing to maybe use, that you want to make sure that asking or learning more about how the data is being stored, that it is HIPAA compliant. I would say in best practice to not have that data and information stored, that it's not being tested on. It's better to have it localized on your computer rather than being on a server. So it gives more privacy and being HIPAA compliant as well too. You want to make sure. But what's happening is after the session, a note is generated. Some platforms they give you like options like a SOAP note or a DAP note, or you can even curate your own type of note style. So it'll actually publish a note to your liking, or it has their own sort of templates of how they produce the note. What happens is then you as the practitioner, you can copy and paste that note, But of course, in best practice, we want to not just copy and paste, not look over it. You want to look over it for accuracy to make sure that, because it can make mistakes. Like I was speaking with one person who had it at a doctor's visit, and it totally changed the medication to a whole different medication that was never even talked about in the session. So you want to check for accuracy. You also want to make sure you get client consent, right? I know the doctor gave a 2 minutes, not even like a 30-second spiel. I would say in best practice to really wholeheartedly and intentionally have that conversation with your client about what this means of using an AI scribe if you're going to choose to use one. I think about the power dynamics also in that conversation, right? As a clinician, you hold more of that power in this space. What does that mean for your client when you're saying, okay, this is going to help me save a lot of time and not having to write all these case notes? And yet your client feels really uncomfortable in using this technology, or just even what that sort of means, right? And if we're working with clients that have been harmed historically by technology, we want to be really cognizant of that as well. So I think at most, right, or at least at the very least, right, having those conversations with your clients, getting client consent. A lot of these AI scribes will also have a written consent form template to have. It's also really important to know that legally, when you use the scribe and let's say you get subpoenaed, it's not the company that gets subpoenaed, it is you, the practitioner. So even if it's AI generated, it's still your name at the bottom of the signature, your license, it's your what you put officially in the record. So your note is going to be subpoenaed. So I think there's just important things to consider. Yes, clinicians across the board are saying it's saving me a lot of time. It's helping me get this done faster. Uh, and yet not saving all the time because you still have to read over the note. And yet clients are also expressing, I'm concerned about this technology. And some mental health clinicians have said, okay, client determination is really important. If they say no, you don't use it. If they're open to you using it, then client giving consent. But I think there's still some ethical parameters that we really want to think about when using AI scribes. So I see both sides of this.
Yeah, yeah, and it makes me think too, just, before AI, a concern that
Mhm.
I would cover with students is obviously if you're meeting with a client and you're taking notes, you wanna make sure they're comfortable with it, and so just be
Yeah.
upfront about why you're doing it and what you're writing down. So same thing, right? You wanna just make sure that
Yeah.
they know that they're informed, I guess, informed consent, basically. You wanna make sure
Mhm.
they're informed and that, they have an option to say no
Very.
if they want to.
Yeah.
Um, Jesse says, "I would worry about going on autopilot in practices. It also seems like it's opening the door to larger caseloads." I hadn't thought about that, but that's very true. People are stacked. You see
Mhm.
all kinds of advertisements for $100,000 a year to see too many
Yeah.
clients.
Yeah.
So
No, you're right. I mean, I've certainly worked in community mental health, caseloads of 40, 48. Keeping up those notes was a huge challenge. So I wonder too in reflecting on those years and at the same time, would the agency have given more clients? I hope, this is my hope, that agencies don't add more of the workload because, okay, now we're freeing up your administrative time because you have an AI scribe. I really hope that this helps bridge more of a work life balance, that we can have these tools to help alleviate, a lot of that extra work that had to be done to keep up with. But I guess time will tell, right? And where this is going to go in the field and how different agencies are really going to stick with our ethical guidance of self-care and having balance and using these tools intentionally to support with some of this workload? Or is this gonna kinda swing to the other opposite pendulum, which we're really struggling with already, right? High caseloads, maxing out because the non-for-profit structure is sort of built in this way that there's not enough funding, and so we're kinda in this, like, constant loop of trying to get more funding, and more resources.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think
See where it
just
goes.
the angle of
Mm.
capitalism too, if it's seen as capital and if it's used to make shareholders more money, then I could see definitely people pushing
Yeah.
in that direction. And so I think that there's a larger discussion elsewhere, but social workers
Yeah.
got to take it back, take the profession back. And if we're the
Mm.
ones that are in the control, then we won't do those things. But if we don't have the control, then people might do those things to us, if that makes sense, or behind the scenes with policy and
Yeah.
whatnot. And it makes me feel really old because when I got into social work, before I ever got into the
Yeah.
education of social work, I worked with kids and, we did our notes by hand. It makes me feel really old. And it's got to be better than my notes by hand because I'm sure that they couldn't read them. I was always in a hurry trying to get out of there and I don't have good handwriting anyway. What
Mhm.
about privacy issues? That's something that you hear. And I think you mentioned it earlier. Just about
Yeah.
got to make sure you're not putting their names in there and and
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Yes. So, especially when using free AI tools, right? ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, right? Because we can prompt to do all sorts of tasks that can be done through these chatbots. And you want to ensure, right, no identifiable information. We want to uphold confidentiality, be very generic. And like an 8-year-old client is expressing, that they are working on emotion regulation. What are strategies that I could use with my client, right? So I'm not putting anything of the client's name, the agency's name, right? It's really generic, especially when using those free AI tools. When agencies purchase an AI tool, like say an agency purchases a contract with Google to have Gemini, then what happens is with this business agreement, it brings more privacy, HIPAA compliance. There's also another tool out there called Bastion GBT. This is a HIPAA compliant ChatGPT technology tool that's built for healthcare workers. So it's built in more of that security and privacy. I think I'm still just under the lay and just the more on the conservative side of just in general, just never put any client information on there
Mhm.
just to be the safest. But when you have a HIPAA compliant tool like Bastion GBT or your agency purchases an AI tool and it comes now with that agreement and security and privacy, that you do know that you have that extra protection of the client's data. But anytime of those free tools, you really, really want to be very intentional, very mindful of not putting anything that's identifiable in there because then the company owns it, right? OpenAI
Mhm.
has that data and information, and we really want to do justice by our clients and not sharing that information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great talking with you, and I'm wondering, is there anything that you wanted to get across here to talk about that I haven't asked you about or we haven't covered?
I don't think so. I mean, it's been such a wonderful conversation with you to really talk more about being a professor, students, right, the field, and sort of, what this technology means and where it's going to go and the ethical guidance that we need to continue to reinforce. And I just really appreciate you having me on the show and inviting me. I'm really grateful.
And likewise, like I said, I feel very blessed and privileged that you took the time out to share your wisdom, your experience, your knowledge with me, with the students, with the broader social work community that listens to this podcast. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me today. And I can't wait to get this episode out. Like I said, I think it's very
Yes.
important, and look forward to the dialogue that's created about it. And I'll share it with my students. So thank you very much.
Yes, and I'll also share with my socials too on the LinkedIn space and all the other places too. So thank you again for this opportunity to
Mm,
chat.
You're welcome. I'm a little bit backed up, but I'll try to get it out quick because I think it's important. And I look forward to connecting with you the next time.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll
Sounds
share some
good.
space somewhere.
Yes.
All right, Marina. Well, you have a great day. Thanks again.
Yes. Take care, Christian. Have a
You
good
too.
one.
Bye bye.